Welcome to Willow Healing Matters, the podcast. We are so excited to have you joining us on this journey where we explore different ways to empower your soul, whether it's healing in your kitchen or all the way up in the corporate world. Come with us as we look into different ways to heal your mind, body, and soul. Hey everyone, it's Catherine Cristani with another episode of Willow Healing Matters, and today I am joined by Shane Jacob, who is a professional horseman, life coach, and speaker. So Shane's feelings of inadequacy at a young adult led to drinking alcohol to excess on a regular basis. His excessive drinking led to a tragic DUI accident, which led to incarnation. The cycle continued. He failed in business, failed in marriages, destroyed relationships, was overweight by 40 plus pounds, and was so disgusted and ashamed of himself, he lied and tried to hide it from it all for years. With the help of horses and God's hand, he finally broke free. Shane took the process and principles he used to turn his life around, combined with what he learned from his career working with horses to create stable living coaching, where he helps parents and teens with the challenges they face in today's world. So a big welcome to the show, Shane.
Hey, thanks so much for having me. I appreciate the opportunity. I love your show, and I'm just excited to be able to have a chat with you today.
And I think it's so magical how God led you to horses and horses ended up being your pivoting turning point, right? When you get to rock bottom and you're open to receiving that assistance, that I feel is when God comes and intervenes.
I agree with that 100%. Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, when God does come and intervene, and it seems like in my case, he came through in the form of horses, just these magnificent creatures, that I've been fortunate and blessed to have the opportunity to spend my career in working with horses. And I'm happy to have it go that way. I was named, I don't know, in the, I don't know, somewhere in the 60s, there was a movie that came out that I was named after, and it was a Western. And so I was named after Shane, the character, and actually the title of the movie. It's an American classic Western from the old days. But anyway, I think I was destined to go down this road.
Well, that's a good way of looking at it. But also, how did the horses come into your life? You've obviously had all these things going on. Life was just poop, in all honesty, at that point. How did the horses find you, or did you find the horses, or I'm sure there's a story.
I always wanted to be a cowboy growing up and do all the cool things cowboys did. And horses and cowboys go together. They represent the thing. And I've been drawn to that, since I was a young kid. We had horses growing up, and so I was driven to do that. I've had a few jobs early on in my career, and I just didn't continue them very long, and because I was drawn back. And so I've spent the last 30 years in the horse industry and doing all different aspects of the horse industry, primarily as a farrier, which puts what that means is putting shoes on horses, a farrier and a blacksmith, and multiple other things in the horse business. As I was, internally, what was inside of me for a long period of time was coming out in all these negative ways. And I just feel like horses were there to save me. I happened to be there, and I happened to notice, and they happened to, one day I thought a horse talked to me. It kind of started then. I know it sounds crazy, but I actually thought, maybe it was God, maybe it was just my mind, but I came off, I fell off, I got bucked off. I don't know, I was drinking a lot back at the time. And during this incident that I'm talking about, and I hit the ground, and the horse didn't seem to be too rattled. I don't even know don't know what happened, because it happened so fast. I was just on the ground,
Mhm.
and so I was just sitting there mad and hurting, and just and I kind of rolled over and I looked at that horse, and he was just over there a little ways away, just like looking around like no big deal, and I just looked at him and I just said, "How could you do this to me?" I thought I was broken bones and everything. And what I heard is that you did this to yourself. And so anyway, that was kind of a moment for me that happened. But I'd like to take just one more step, and that is that what I began in that moment, I began to notice me. And what I noticed in relating with horses, or in the relationship that I had with horses and that one and all the rest of them, were that everything that was inside of me was coming out in what was happening in these relationships with these horses. And I started paying attention to that, and I started to realize how perceptive that they were. And then I studied a little bit and realized that it's part of their instinct for survival to be hyper aware of everything. Things that I wasn't aware of that were happening in me. In other words, I was having what I was thinking in my mind, it felt like they knew. I think what they did know is that what I was thinking caused me to feel a certain way, and my feelings caused me to act a certain way, and they were really keying in on every little minute action that I wasn't really even aware of. And that is the way of horses. That is the way of horses. And what I mean by that, an example of that is if you come to the barn, or if you come to the corral, or if you come in proximity of a horse and you think that, you're going to put everything in your mind, you're having a bad day and you're just going to put it over there, you're going to keep this little secret between you and yourself. I'm just here to tell you there's no secrets in the barn. Okay. When you come into the barn, I mean, the word's out and you haven't even said a word, or you haven't even done anything explicitly that would show, what's going on with you, but they're just so hyper aware. And that was uh,
Powerful
these are like
reflection.
big revelations to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel there's a theory behind that is because isn't a horse's heart, correct me if I'm wrong, a horse's heart 8 times the size of ours. So their magnetic field, or their energetic field, would be technically then 8 times the projection of what ours is. So it'd be able to detect a lot more subtle nuances compared to what we can.
I've heard about this, the heart size and the magnetic field and all that. I'm not I'm aware of what you've said there, and that what I understand is true. What I can tell you is when you come close to a horse, you feel something.
It's
Something
true.
is there that
Yeah.
you feel nobility, you feel the magnificence, you feel you almost feel the nobility is a good word for it, because it's not totally innocence, but you feel something, you feel a presence of power.
Yeah. And it's almost a
Certainly.
mutual respect, right? Like you as a human have to respect these big, magnificent beasts because, they can harm you if they want to, but they choose not to, and there's that,
Absolutely.
and that's the humbling nature about being around them. And I feel to share this story about what happened with me with a horse. So I actually grew up with some horses, but being the rebellious teenager, and my mum liked them, I was like, no, I'm not going near horses because my mum liked them. But at the same time, my mum still has horses. But I was actually at this property with a friend, and we were looking at running some nature camps for kids there. And this the person was showing us around, and this man, he was so grumpy. Like he was one of the grumpiest, angriest people I've met. And we were walking through the paddocks, and there was this horse, and this horse came straight up to me. And I can actually talk to animals and trees and plants and things like that. So when you said that the horse spoke to you, I fully believe you, Shane, because this horse came up to me, put its head on my shoulder right here, and it went, I know he's a grumpy old bastard, but he looks after us, and that's what matters. And I was like, okay. And then the horse like followed me around, like, and I was just laughing because it actually didn't stop following me till we actually got out of the paddock. And, at that point I was like, okay, thank you for being some humbling messages and actually making me laugh on this very awkward tour this property with this angry grumpy person. And they just come up to you if you are in the right space. And I've also interviewed people who do equine therapy and things like that, and they'll say to you, the horse approaches you. Like you cannot make that horse come to you if you're not open and ready to receive whatever message needs to come up to you.
Yeah. I do know there is so much value. I've seen it firsthand in lots of equine therapy, therapy. So much. It's actually incredible. I think that I don't regularly communicate in English with horses. I regularly communicate my language, and I feel like they understand me, even though I don't hear their words. But the things that I really have gained, learned, earned the understandings, realizations that I've got. The biggest one from horses that make a difference in the relationships that I have with people and the relationships that, that I help other people who are struggling with relationships and themselves, including the relationship with yourself. Because when I was talking about the idea that they are so perceptive, that they almost feel like they know what you're thinking, as I started to become aware of what I was thinking and how it was making a difference and how it was affecting the relationship between me and horses, that it was it helped me to realize that the key was what I was thinking about me. Now, I may not have consciously been thinking about me, but the beliefs that I have, whether they were autopilot, just came from all my brain's input throughout my life, or actual thoughts, and I define the thought as a sentence or a phrase that just goes through your mind. Whether it was a thought I was having or a belief system that I just accepted as a truth and had never questioned, a belief or a thought about me, the way I related with me, what I believed about me was having the biggest impact on anything else. Now, when we talk about training horses and communicating, it's communication is the key, and like, what are they picking up on? And you have to know how to, if you don't know how to talk like you do, if you don't have, I don't know what that is, a gift, which I don't think I do. You have to have another way to communicate. And so I have studied communicating with horses for, decades. Yet, even though I know a technique or a skill or a method, I'll say, to communicate to you, okay, even more importantly than important than this method is going to be how I apply it, and how I apply it is going to be based on what is inside of me. What I mean by that is what I believe about me is going to come out the way that I believe about me. And so that's kind of what I base my book that I'm almost finished writing finally, and my coaching and kind of my philosophy on, is that the most important thing I believe that we can do in this lifetime is consider and choose and develop what we want to believe about ourselves. Mm-hmm. Because the way it comes out with horses is it's the same way that it comes out with people, and it has the biggest impact on our results than anything else. I believe than anything else. I know that's a big statement, but I honest to God believe it.
100% agree, because what you like, it's like attracts like. There's all these universal laws, right? So if you're, and it's funny because I use oracle cards, and yesterday I pulled one, and it was about watching your words. And it's so often that we forget that the words that we speak about ourselves speak that into truth. Like when people say, "Oh, I'm so stupid," because they did something wrong, then they're believing that about themselves. They're actually speaking that into existence. And I worked with children for years, and I would tell parents, stop telling them that they're naughty, because they're going to become naughty. Like, just if you say to them all the time, "You're naughty, you're naughty, you're naughty," like you said, that creates this internal belief system, and then that projects out into their outside world. So, whatever's happening, exactly like you started, whatever's happening inside you manifests on the outside and reflects back to you. So even I'm that person that will look at the extremes. So, my car popped a tire, and I was like, "Oh, how's this reflecting my life right now?" And I was like, "Oh, because I'm not slowing down, and I'm going to pop, like, something in my life is going to, like, I'm going to pop because I'm not actually stopping and resting and paying attention to my body saying I need to stop right now, and that's what's going to happen." And then it was funny because then the next day when my tires were getting changed, the battery conked out as well. So I was like, okay, message understood. I'm running flat. I need to rest and recover. I understand. But a lot of people will miss that feedback that's happening around them because they believe that it's all fate or destiny or just external, just a coincidence, rather than actually going, okay, well, what's happening deep inside me that's creating this flexion on the outside? And like you said, you can't hide that from horses. Horses just pick up on it and will reflect it straight back to you. If you're being standoffish with everybody, they'll be standoffish with you.
Yep. You can hide it from people for a little while, but it's going to show up in your results, just like you said. I love what you said. And it's so true. And you began with our internal dialogue, our actual words that we speak out loud and the thoughts that we think about ourselves. And it's so true that a lot of times we take it as a belief. We just think that that's the way that it is. Like, I'm this or I'm that or I'm whatever. And we don't, first of all, I don't think that we have a lot of times we don't know that we have the ability to choose what we believe in,
Yes.
particularly with ourselves. We just think that all this evidence that we've had means something and we make meaning out of it. And we think it's like a natural law that can't be changed, but it's simply, we're kind of just making all this stuff up as we go. It's our brain, which is an organ inside of our head, which is not our conscious self, is determining these things for us. And so unless we become aware of it and make choices of what we want to think about ourselves, it's just going to we're just going to live our lives around what has been in this haphazard, pre-programmed, automatic, unexamined way, where the sadness is people live and die like that and it's fine. But if you become aware of it, then you have the opportunity to make a choice and choose, which is going to change the outcome. And I honestly believe, and I'm going to give you one more quick example of horses, that unless we can come to believe in our own magnificence, our own nobility, and I said that nobility, our own greatness as human beings, not greater than another, but our own individual, measured against ourselves, our own greatness, that we won't be able to give to relationships with horses, to the relationships with the people that we love, and make the contribution to the world that we were here, that is available for us to make if we so choose to do so. A lot of times we get hung up on things that we've done and we make meanings out of things that we've done. A lot of times, or things that we haven't done, or a lot of times things that have been done to us. And I like to use horses as an example of forgiveness, because I think there's a lot to be gained. You hear quite a bit of talk about self-acceptance and forgiveness, and in working on better ways to think about myself, but it's a pretty hard one. A lot of times it's hard for us to cross the bridge to say that I fully accept myself regardless of what I've done, and have it be okay. In other words, to separate myself as a invaluable, priceless individual from what I've done that wasn't so nice. Let me just tell you something. I've done some things that we're probably just not going to talk about, in this show right here. But the thing of it is we've all done some things, or a thing, And what I'm saying is that regardless of what we've done, we can separate what we've done with who we are and our value as a creature, as a being on this earth. I said I was going to relate it to horses, so let me just quickly tie that together. With horses between man and woman and a horse, it's a relationship. And so, hey, in relationships, even with horses, and even especially with horses, things happen that can be perceived as unfair, or we do things that we wish we wouldn't have. We react in frustration or anger or confusion, or a lot of times it's just a communication matter. We didn't know, so we're trying to communicate something, and it's not being understood. And so, there's all these things that can, in a dynamic, that can happen, the same as it does with human beings between you and I, right? A misunderstanding, or, oh man, I wish I wouldn't have done that. And the thing with horses, here's the thing. If you continue to do something that they perceive as unfair, they're not going to continue to let it go. They're going to react to it, and you're going to know that they don't think that's acceptable, okay? They think it's unfair. Now, if I recognize this, okay, hey, Shane, I did this because I was frustrated and I'm going to try to do it different now. Or, what I was trying to communicate wasn't being accepted. And so now I think I understand a better way to communicate this. Whatever the situation is, I go back and I'm going to try to repair this perceived unfairness, or whatever, total unfairness. Okay. This thing that I wish I would have done differently. the horse isn't just gonna, like I said, what I meant by that, the horse is not just gonna like be a doormat and throw itself down so you can just do whatever all the time, right? It's gonna protect itself, okay?
Yeah.
In mental, emotional, and in physical ways. Okay, it's going to protect itself. But when you come back and you come back with with your change of heart and your change of method, okay, it only takes 2 times and 3 times to seal it, and it's over. What I mean by that is there is no residue that will be left over. This is absolutely amazing. There is no residue left over from that initial unfairness. It's gone. As far as that horse is concerned, it's like it didn't happen. Okay. And so my message here is that when we look at ourselves and the things that we wish that we wouldn't have done, the things that we have shame over, and shame is what I was describing earlier, we're making something that we did mean something about ourselves rather than making it mean that we did a thing that we wish we wouldn't have. We make it mean I did something that I wish we wouldn't have, and that means this about me, rather than human beings do things that they wish they wouldn't have and have it be okay.
Yeah.
So I plead with people, and I plead with everyone who can hear me today, that if you have anything inside of your life that you wish you wouldn't have done, or that you wish you would have done, or even something that's been done to you that you're making mean something about you in a negative way, my plea is that, like a horse, you look at it, you make amends where you can, you decide to make a change if possible, and then you let it go 100%, and that you fully accept yourself and don't make that be a part of your value as a soul, a living soul. You fully let it go, because accepting that and sealing that belief in yourself is going to be one thing about the beliefs about yourself that is going to come out in your own results, in the results to the people that you love, and further help you make the contribution on this planet that you're here to make.
So beautifully said, Shane. You know, it's when we create those judgments of ourselves and those beliefs around what we believe about ourselves because of just something that happened that can be truly detrimental. You know, I know personally I had to unpack my worth story because I sold my business and then the money kind of disappeared. Not that we were spending it like crazy, but subconsciously I believed I wasn't worthy of it because I didn't work hard for it, even though I worked hard whilst I was running the business and everything. But that money was so conditioned in my mind that to come in, you had to be working hard for it. Like, not just, okay, I can accept this abundance because I've done all this work and this is my reward now. And there was no acknowledgement of accomplishments. And that's been my thing. Like, I keep going to the next thing, the next thing, next thing, and I don't actually celebrate my wins. And it was only when someone reflected that back to me that I went, huh, I don't actually celebrate all these achievements that I've had or all these things that I've done. Or, you know, when I sit there and I'm like, oh, what have I actually done? I'm like, oh, I've done this and I've done this and I've done this. But this is where like your worth can come from, your beliefs about yourself, and exactly like you said, how your life pans out based on these belief systems. It's amazing how much we put stock in the actions that have been taken against us or what we did or didn't do.
For sure.
Yeah. And I also love what you brought up about forgiveness because I find when I work with my clients that that is something that a lot of people find incredibly challenging, like forgiving themselves or offering that forgiveness to others because there's that whole cultural belief that you forgive and forget, right? And it's like, no, it's forgive and take your power back. You know, it's not forgive and forget. It's remember what happened because you need to learn from that, but at the same time, forgive and move on because it's when you hold on to that and hold on to the grudges and hold on to the things that happened and keep using that to shape your life that, like you said, you're not going to be living your soul mission or what God put you on earth to be doing.
Amen. Yep. So true that when the better that we get with forgiving ourselves, it just then we relate to other people. It becomes so much easier because we can see with ourselves how to do it, and it becomes easier with other people. And we can more and more realize that forgiving other people is not about giving someone else a gift. It's about giving ourselves a gift, really.
Yeah, truly, truly. And that's, I really like I don't know if you know about the Ho'oponopono practice, that Hawaiian practice. It's like you say, thank you, I love you, I'm sorry, I forgive you, please forgive me, and then I forgive myself. You know, it's so powerful. to do that, and I often get clients to do that, and they're like, "But I can't forgive my mum." And I was like, "That's okay. What else can you forgive?" And I learnt this from another guest, Catherine Giovanni. She said, "You forgive everything else around the event, so you keep getting closer to actually forgiving that person because." Like you said, that forgiveness is the key to letting it go and stop letting it control who you are becoming and who you want to be.
That's a great strategy too. Yeah. One piece at a time.
One piece of 100%. Um, and I feel to ask how you use horses to help reflect with your clients when you're doing life coaching. How do you've touched on it a little bit, but how do they get to go face the horse? Do they, yeah.
Yeah. Most of my coaching is virtual where we just, we use, analogies and stories and we relate how we relate with horses to how we relate with people. We do have a couple of events during the year where we actually have people come and we actually demonstrate these principles with horses. We show how perceptive they are, like how they can pick up on fear and lack of confidence and anger and frustration and all the different things, and also how they can pick up on the other side of the coin, someone who walks in there as a loving, kind, competent leadership role and what the magic can happen. It's just incredible to see the difference of how horses relate. And then the next step is of course then we begin to practice this and form it into a habit, and then we can have it come into our lives with human beings and people, and it can be pretty magic.
Oh, habits. I don't think people realize how hard it is to create new habits and to break other habits because I talk about this with people all the time. I'm like, it takes ages. It takes months. Like months, you have to dedicate yourself to it, to get it to that acceptance phase and then integration phase and then actually automatic phase. It takes a while, but that's a whole different podcast.
It, it is. I will just say one thing about
Yeah.
that, and that is this, and that is that a lot of times that I think that I don't think that we put enough priority and enough emphasis on I'm going to wrap all this up: self-confidence, self-esteem, your self-image, your your beliefs about yourself, all wrapped up into one thing. And that is what you believe to be true about yourself. And I think a lot of us say, well, that's what see that over there. That's what being lack of confidence looks like. And I have confidence. I did that a long time ago. And we don't really prioritize the idea that my internal beliefs have such an impact on all of our results, just like the story about your car breaking down. I mean, if you wouldn't have looked inward to
Mm,
see, I mean you were able to have the awareness to stop, take a look, and say, hey, what's happening here that is causing my result out there? And uh the majority, I think the most important thing that we can do is to prioritize what we believe to be true about ourselves and uncover it, realize that we can do it, and then begin working on lifetime habits that we don't like accomplish and they're done. It's like, well, how good can I get at it today? Like it's a lifetime journey. That's what I'm going for.
yeah. And I feel it's also important to mention that you're not meant to do it alone because sometimes it's really hard to reflect back to yourself what's happening because you can't always see your blind spot. And this is why it's really good to have support or a team or someone you can go to and say, hey, this happened in my life. I need help unpacking it. Like even for me, I still had someone I could talk about that with and reflect it back and go, okay, this is what happened, and then get the question back, okay, well, what does it mean? And if you haven't got the ability to have that awareness, even for me the other week, all these people in my life were breaking their bones. And I was like, whoo, this is more than a coincidence. There's been three incidences, right, in like a period of a week. And then I spoke to my coach because I have a coach, and he wrote back and he said, bones are about structure. What do you need to break down in your life? And I went, oh, thank you. I just needed that guidance and off I went. But, sometimes we think we can do it alone because that's our ego. But, it can be really hard, whether it's, working with animals or working with other people. Sometimes it's nice to have that support around you.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Pretty painful without it.
Exactly. And longer. It takes longer. Why take the long route? Why not take the route where you're supported and you can get through things twice as fast than sit there and go around for months trying to figure out what's going on, right?
The biggest in my my primary focus right now is on parents and teens, and
Mm.
the number one factor with teens in longevity of making a change is if they have a mentor, their group of their peers, and if they have somebody that they look up to as a role model and a mentor. Those are the ones that the cases where the long-term change stays
Yeah.
mostly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess this is where, as a parent myself, you always get nervous about who your kids' friends are. Be like, do you really want to be friends with that one? Are you sure? Are you sure? As we start to finish our time up together, Shane, I asked the guests that come on the show, if you could heal or change something in the world, what would it be?
Yeah, I appreciate that question, and I like it. And I'll tell you what I would have is I would have every human being alive that could come to know over time that they are in fact invaluable, priceless, that they are worthy, that they're deserving of everything that's available in this world, that they could know that in their heart and soul all the way through. And that regardless, and I mean regardless of what they or we have done, and like I said again, or haven't done or has been done to us, that we are invaluable. And that would be my wish to the world, because as we can come to know that, um, that's what changes. It starts here, and then it's our circle of influence, and then it's the world.
Yeah, beautifully put. So beautifully said. And if people want to come and work with you, Shane, and your stable living coaching, where can they find you?
Yeah, thank you so much. We're at stablelivingcoaching.com. If you want to have better relationships and relate with people better than you do, and have more connectivity with the people that you're close to, your kids or your loved ones, if you want to have more of that than you have right now and 6 months from now, you can go to stablelivingcoaching.com and sign up for my free weekly message. It's just a short weekly video message. It's called You Are Destined for Greatness. And if you're interested in that, I'd highly recommend that.
Beautiful.
Absolutely free.
Perfect. I'll make sure to put all that in the show notes as well so that people can come and find you and also come connect with you on social media if they have it. So thank you so much, Shane, for sharing your journey and also how you've seen that reflection in working with horses and how that can be applied to your life and remembering that you are a valuable human being.
Catherine, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for listening to Willow Healing Matters, the podcast. We have so much love and gratitude that you have taken the time out of your day to empower you on your healing journey. The views shared by the person being interviewed might not necessarily reflect that of the host and should be used at your own discernment. Trust what resonates for you and follow your heart and soul guidance. If you have any underlying medical conditions or mental health issues, please consult with your healthcare provider before pursuing any of the recommendations. Likewise, you can always contact the person being interviewed to find out more information. This can be found in the show notes. Remember to activate, align, heal, empower, and find love in everything that you do.